So let's talk about Iran. When I say that word, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, especially in the West, it's not exactly a vacation destination. The word itself comes loaded with baggage, doesn't it? It conjures up images from the news, angry crowds, stern-faced leaders, and a general sense of, well, fear. It's a place shrouded in suspicion. A country we're taught to see through a very specific, very narrow lens. It's the villain in a movie we've been watching for 40 years. But here's the thing about villains in movies. They're two-dimensional. The story is never that simple. The Iran we see on our screens is a carefully curated highlight reel of tension and conflict. It's a narrative of silence and oppression, and while those things are part of the story, they are far from the story. What about the ordinary people, the artists, the scientists, the dreamers, the comedians? What about the life that happens when the cameras aren't rolling? What about the vibrant, complex, and deeply human reality that gets lost in the noise? That's what we're here to do. This isn't about politics or picking sides. This is about pulling back the curtain. In this episode of NVL Travel Documentary, we're going beyond the headlines, beyond the sound bites, and beyond the fear. We're going to try and see the Iran that's been left unsaid, to listen to the voices that are rarely heard, and to piece together a more complete picture of one of the most misunderstood countries on earth. We're going on a journey into the heart of Persia. Alright, let's start with what you've seen the pictures, right? The news reports that come out when sanctions get tighter. They show struggle, and they're not wrong. Life in Iran for many is incredibly difficult. The economy is a constant battle. You see it in the faces of the people in the bazaar, the way a grandfather carefully counts his rials, trying to make them stretch just a little bit further. You see the worry etched into the lines around his eyes. This isn't a fabrication for the cameras, it's the daily reality of navigating a system under immense pressure. Poverty here isn't just a statistic, it's a visible weight. You see young men who should be in university working multiple jobs, their dreams deferred for the sake of survival. You see families making impossible choices between medicine and food, and you might think, see, it's exactly as bad as they say, and in some ways you'd be right. The economic hardship is real, it's pervasive, and it grinds people down. It's the part of the story the media loves to show because it fits the narrative of a failing state, a country on the brink, but that's where the media usually stops. They show you the struggle, but they miss the most important part of the equation, the response to that struggle. What they don't show you is the incredible, almost defiant resilience that this pressure cooker has created. They don't linger on the fact that the man counting his coins will still, without a second thought, invite you, a complete stranger, to his home to share the little food he has. That's a part of the culture called a complex dance of politeness. But it comes from a genuine place of hospitality that hardship has not been able to extinguish. You see, for every image of despair, there's an untold story of support. Neighbors pooling resources to help a family that's fallen on hard times. Strangers on the street stopping to help you when your car breaks down, refusing any payment. There's a powerful sense of community, a social fabric woven from a shared understanding of enduring hardship together. It's a quiet strength that doesn't make for exciting headlines. It's not a protest, it's not a fiery speech. It's just people being people, holding each other up. And this is the first contradiction you encounter in Iran, the contrast between the external pressures and the internal spirit. The government projects an image of unbending strength to the world, while its people perform daily miracles of survival and generosity. The news shows you a nation defined by what it lacks, but when you're on the ground, you're struck by what it has in abundance: dignity, fortitude, and a stubborn refusal to be broken. This resilience is everywhere. It's in the way people create art out of scrap materials. It's in the underground music scenes that flourish despite the risks. It's in the dark humor people use to cope with the absurdity of their situation. I mean, the jokes Iranians tell about their own government are some of the sharpest, funniest, and most dangerous things you'll ever hear. It's a coping mechanism, sure, but it's also a form of resistance. Laughter in the face of autocracy is a powerful thing. So, yes, the Iran you've seen on TV, the one of economic struggle, is true. But it's a truth told without its context, without its soul. It's like describing a diamond by only talking about the pressure that formed it. You're missing the part where it shines. The media shows you the hardship, but they don't show you the grace with which it is born. They show you the clenched fist, but not the open hand that follows. And that's the gap we need to bridge. The gap between the lived experience and the media portrayal. The reality is that life here is a constant negotiation. A negotiation between hope and despair, between tradition and modernity, between the rules that are written and the rules that are lived. The truth you've seen is real, but it's only one chapter in a much, much longer book. And to understand Iran, you have to be willing to read the rest of it. Okay, so if you close your eyes and picture Iran, what do you see? I'm willing to bet it's probably desert. Camels, maybe. A few ancient ruins. Basically the set of, but with more stern-looking people. It's a caricature that's been drilled into our heads for decades, this image of a country stuck in the past, a dusty relic of a bygone era. It's an easy image to sell because it fits neatly into the US versus them box. Modern, progressive us, and backward, ancient them. But then you land in Tehran, and your brain kind of short-circuits because what you see doesn't match the movie in your head. You see sprawling highways clogged with modern cars. You see gleaming skyscrapers piercing the skyline, buildings with architectural designs that would look at home in Dubai or Seoul. You see massive, stylish shopping malls filled with young people in skinny jeans and designer knockoffs, scrolling through Instagram on the latest smartphones. Wait, what? This wasn't in the brochure. This is the Iran they never ever show you. Why? Because it complicates the narrative. It's hard to paint a country as a primitive, existential threat when you see its engineers have built one of the most impressive and clean subway systems in the world. It's hard to call them isolated when you see tech startups in North Tehran that look and feel exactly like the ones in Silicon Valley, with young entrepreneurs buzzing with ideas for the next big app. This is a country that performs complex organ transplants and has a thriving stem cell research program. This isn't a society of camel herders, and the diversity of lifestyles is staggering. We're shown one version of an Iranian woman covered head to toe in a black chador, silent and submissive. And yes, you will see that woman. But you will also see a woman in a brightly colored headscarf pushed way back on her highlighted hair, wearing impeccable makeup, running her own business, and arguing about poetry in a cafe. You'll see women who are race car drivers, who are acclaimed film directors, who make up over 60% of university graduates. The idea of a monolithic Iranian woman is a fiction. The same goes for the men. The stereotype is either a bearded cleric or an angry protester. But the reality is the guy who spends his weekends hiking in the Alborz Mountains that frame Tehran. It's the hipster who runs a specialty coffee shop. It's the devoted father teaching his daughter how to ride a bike in the park. It's the group of guys having a passionate, hours-long argument about the latest Real Madrid game. They're just people, with all the same complexities and interests as people anywhere else. Think about the technology. Despite sanctions designed to cut them off from the world, Iran has one of the most tech-savvy populations you'll ever meet. Everyone is on Telegram and Instagram, using VPNs to bypass government censorship. They're not just consumers of technology, they are creators. They've built their own versions of Uber called Snap and Amazon called Digicala. This isn't a sign of a backward society. It's a sign of a society that is resourceful, educated, and desperately wants to connect with the modern world. This modernity isn't just in Tehran. You go to a city like Isfahan or Shiraz, and yes, you see the breathtaking ancient mosques and palaces. They are some of the most beautiful structures ever built by human hands. But right next to that history, you see a modern, vibrant city. You see university students debating philosophy on the grass. You see families having picnics with portable speakers playing the latest pop music. They cherish their history, they are deeply proud of it, but they are not trapped by it. So why is this modern Iran hidden from us? Because it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. If Iranians are this modern, this educated, this connected, then maybe they're not so different from us. And if they're not so different, it becomes a lot harder to demonize them. It's easier to sell a war or crippling sanctions against a caricature than against a country full of people who watch the same TV shows as you, listen to the same music and dream the same dreams for their children. The Iran they don't show you is the Iran that looks a little too much like us. Okay, this next point is a big one. It's something that seems basic, but you'd be shocked how many people, even smart, well-informed people, get this wrong. And it drives Iranians absolutely crazy. So let's just clear this up once and for all. Iranians are not Arabs. I know. To many in the West, the Middle East is just one big, amorphous blob of sand, oil, and people who look vaguely similar. But lumping Iranians and Arabs together is like saying Italians and Germans are the same because they're both European. It's just... no. Let's start with the most obvious difference: language. Arabs speak Arabic. Iranians speak Farsi, also known as Persian. They don't even belong to the same language family. Arabic is a Semitic language related to Hebrew. Farsi is an Indo-European language, which means, believe it or not, it's in the same family as English, German, and French. If you listen to them spoken, they sound completely different. The only reason they share a similar script is because of the Arab conquest of Persia in the 7th century, but the language itself remained distinct. It's like how Vietnamese uses a Latin alphabet but is in no way a Latin language. Then there's ethnicity and history. The Arab identity is rooted in the tribes of the Arabian Peninsula. The Persian identity is rooted in the great Persian empires of Cyrus the Great and Darius, stretching back thousands of years before the rise of Islam. Iranians are fiercely proud of this pre-Islamic history, of their Zoroastrian roots, of the poets like Hafez and Rumi, who wrote in Farsi. When you walk through the ruins of Persepolis, you're walking through the history of a civilization that was a rival to ancient Greece and Rome. This is heritage. This isn't just ancient history, it shapes modern identity. The biggest holiday in Iran isn't a religious one, it's Nowruz, the Persian New Year. It's a 2-week celebration that coincides with the spring equinox and is rooted in Zoroastrianism. It's about renewal, family, and a tradition that long predates Islam's arrival in the region. This is a core part of being Iranian, and it has nothing to do with Arab culture. This distinction is a huge point of national pride. Now, does this mean there are no Arabs in Iran? Of course not. Iran is a multi-ethnic country. There is a significant Arab minority, especially in the southwestern province of Khuzestan, but there are also Azeris, Kurds, Lurs, Baloch, and Turkmens. Each has its own language, culture, and traditions. To call Iran an Arab country is not only incorrect, it erases the identity of the Persian majority and the incredible diversity of all the other ethnic groups that make up the nation. It's a country, not a monolith. So why the confusion? Part of it is just geographical ignorance. For many, Middle East has become synonymous with Arab, but the bigger reason is religion. Because Iran is a majority Shia Muslim country, and the dominant power in the region, Saudi Arabia, is a majority Sunni Arab country, people tend to conflate the two. They see Islam and they stop there. But the cultural and ethnic differences are profound. In fact, the geopolitical rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia is fueled in part by this very Persian-Arab distinction. It's a subtle point, but it's crucial for understanding the Iranian mindset. When the West lumps them in with Arabs, it feels like a deliberate erasure of their unique identity and their proud history. It feels like they're being told that their thousands of years of civilization don't matter. It's seen not just as an ignorant mistake, but as a political insult. It plays right into the narrative that the West doesn't care enough to understand them. So the next time you hear someone talk about the Arabs in Iran, you can be the smart one in the room. You can gently correct them and explain that Iranians are Persian, with their own language, their own culture, and a history that is one of the richest and oldest on the planet. It's a small detail, but it's the first step to seeing the country for what it is, not what we mistakenly assume it to be. It's about affording them the basic respect of calling them who they are. Alright, let's wade into the deep end. Iran's foreign policy. On the world stage, Iran is often cast as the aggressor, the rogue state, the sponsor of terror, the country that's always stirring up trouble in the neighborhood. The news is filled with stories about its nuclear program, its support for militias in other countries, and its leaders chanting death to America. And look, I'm not here to tell you that the Iranian government is a bunch of misunderstood pacifists. Their actions in the region are complex, controversial, and have had very real, often destructive consequences. But the narrative of Iran as this inherently, almost genetically aggressive nation that just loves chaos for the sake of chaos. That's a little too simple, don't you think? History is never that simple. To understand Iran's actions today, you have to look at the last 70 years from their perspective. And from their perspective, the story isn't one of aggression, but of defense. It's a story of being attacked, interfered with, and cornered. Let's do a quick history recap. 1953. Iran has a democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. He makes a bold move. He nationalizes Iran's oil industry, which had been controlled by the British. He wanted Iran's oil to benefit Iranians. How did the West respond? The CIA and MI6 orchestrated a coup, overthrew him, and reinstalled the Shah, an autocratic monarch who would rule with an iron fist for the next 25 years, all while serving Western oil interests. Imagine that happening to your country. A foreign power comes in, topples your democracy for their own profit. You probably wouldn't forget that. Fast forward to the 1980s. After the 1979 revolution, which was, in many ways, a direct backlash to that coup, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invades Iran. This wasn't a small border skirmish, it was a brutal 8-year war that killed up to 1 million people. And who was backing Saddam? Who was giving him money, weapons, and intelligence? The United States, Great Britain, the Soviet Union, France, and many of the Arab Gulf states. They even looked the other way when he used chemical weapons on Iranians. Imagine fighting a war for your nation's survival and the entire world is helping your enemy. You might come out of that experience a little paranoid. This history doesn't excuse Iran's actions, but it does provide context. When you've been a victim of a foreign-backed coup and a devastating invasion supported by global powers, you might develop a foreign policy that is deeply suspicious, defensive, and focused on one thing: ensuring it never happens again. Their strategy of using proxies and militias across the region, from Hezbollah in Lebanon to groups in Iraq and Yemen, is seen in the West as aggression. But from Tehran's point of view, it's about creating a buffer zone. It's about forward defense, fighting their enemies far from their borders so they don't have to fight them on their own soil again. And then there's the nuclear issue. The West sees it as an aggressive pursuit of a bomb. Iran has always maintained it's for peaceful energy purposes. But again, look at the context. They live in a very tough neighborhood. To their east, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. To their west, Israel is widely understood to have nuclear weapons. They are surrounded by American military bases. From their perspective, having the capability to build a bomb, even if they never do it, is the ultimate insurance policy against another invasion. It's the ultimate deterrent. Again, this is not a defense of the Iranian regime. It is an attempt at explanation. The rhetoric is fiery, and the actions are often destabilizing. But to understand why, you have to understand the deep-seated sense of vulnerability that permeates the Iranian strategic mindset. They see a world that has, time and again, acted against their sovereignty and their security. Their actions are not those of a country that feels powerful and wants to conquer the world. They are the actions of a country that feels encircled and is desperately trying to push back. So is Iran aggressive, or is it paranoid? Is it a bully, or is it a cornered animal that has learned to lash out to protect itself? The reality, as always, is probably somewhere in the messy middle. But when we only hear the aggressive part of the story, we're missing the entire backstory that drives the plot. We're seeing the what without ever asking why. And without the why, you can't have understanding. You can only have fear. When you think of religion in Iran, the image is stark. It's the supreme leader, it's stern-faced clerics, it's the morality police. It's a country governed by a strict, unyielding interpretation of Shia Islam. And because this is the image of power, we assume it represents everyone. We see a theocracy and we assume we're looking at a nation of 85 million zealots. But the relationship between the Iranian people and their faith is infinitely more complex, personal, and diverse than the state-sanctioned version. First of all, let's be clear, the government of Iran is a radical religious regime. Its interpretation of Islam is used as a tool of political control, that is undeniable. But the government is not the people. This is the most important distinction to make. For a huge portion of the population, especially the youth, their frustration with the government has led to a deep disillusionment with public displays of religion. You see it everywhere. You see the headscarves worn as loosely as possible, a small act of daily rebellion. You see a general apathy towards state-run religious ceremonies. Many Iranians are deeply spiritual, but they practice their faith in a very private, personal way. It's a relationship between them and God, not them and the state. They might fast during Ramadan, but they'll roll their eyes at a sermon from a state-appointed cleric. They cherish the poetry of Rumi, which is filled with mystical Sufi Islam, a far cry from the rigid orthodoxy of the regime. Their faith is a source of comfort, tradition, and cultural identity, not a political banner. And Iran isn't even 100% Muslim. There's a diversity of faith here that is constitutionally recognized, which might surprise you. There are ancient and protected communities of Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians, yes, Jews. In a country whose government is famously anti-Israel, there is a functioning, if cautious, Jewish community that has been in Persia for over 2,500 years. They have their own synagogues, schools, and even a representative in the Iranian parliament. It's a mind-bending contradiction. The same goes for Christians, particularly Armenian and Assyrian Christians. They have their own churches, many of them centuries old, and they celebrate Christmas and Easter freely within their communities. And then, there are the Zoroastrians, the followers of Iran's pre-Islamic religion. Their fire temples still burn, and their traditions, like Nowruz, are celebrated by the entire nation. These communities face discrimination and are not truly free, but their continued existence shatters the myth of a country that is purely and uniformly Islamic. The mistake we make is confusing visibility with reality. The regime's version of Islam is the most visible because it controls the state, the media, and the public square. It's loud, it's imposing, and it's backed by force. But the quiet, personal, diverse, and often skeptical faith of the Iranian people is the much larger reality. It's in the homes, in the hearts, and in the private conversations that happen far from the ears of the authorities. You see this contradiction play out in public spaces. You'll visit a breathtakingly beautiful mosque, a masterpiece of Islamic art, and see people praying with genuine devotion. And then, just outside, you'll see a group of young people discreetly sharing a forbidden bottle of wine on a picnic. Both are Iran. It's not a country of radicals. It's a country where a radical government rules over a population that is, by and large, moderate and increasingly secular. Understanding this is key. When you see Iranians protesting, it's rarely a protest against God or against Islam itself. It's a protest against the state's co-opting of their faith. It's a demand to separate the personal, spiritual realm from the oppressive, political one. They are not fighting to become a godless country. Many are fighting to get their God back from the government, and that is a nuance that is almost always lost in translation. So, you have this image of Iran. A country of struggle, a country of strict rules, a country of suspicion. You put it all together and the picture you get is gray, muted. A place where joy goes to die. The official image is one of solemnity and piety. Color and fun seem to be outlawed. The stereotype is of a society where life is lived in hushed tones under a blanket of repression. And while that blanket is real, what's happening underneath it is a full-blown color explosion. Iran is a country of loopholes. For every strict rule the government imposes, the people have found 10 creative ways to get around it. It's a national sport. Alcohol is illegal? No problem. A thriving black market and homebrewing culture exists. You can get anything from homemade wine to smuggled scotch. Social gatherings between unmarried men and women are forbidden. People host parties in their homes behind closed doors, where the music is loud, people dance, and the headscarves come off. These aren't just small acts of defiance, they are how people maintain their sanity and their humanity, and the youth are the engine of this vibrancy. More than 60% of Iran's population is under the age of 30. This is a generation that grew up with the internet, with satellite TV, with a window to the outside world. They have no memory of the revolution. They see what life is like in other countries and they want a piece of it. They are pushing boundaries in every way imaginable. In fashion, in art, in music, in their social lives. They are in a constant high-stakes negotiation with the authorities. You see it in the secret, illegal rave parties held in the desert outside Tehran. You see it in the parkour athletes leaping across the rooftops of the city, a literal expression of freedom in a restricted space. You see it in the bold street art that appears overnight on city walls, often with powerful political messages, only to be painted over by the authorities a day later. It's a cat-and-mouse game, a constant dance between expression and repression. This is the ultimate contradiction of Iran. It is simultaneously one of the most repressed societies and one of the most vibrant. The pressure from the top has created an incredible creative force from below. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more forcefully it wants to pop back up. This energy is palpable everywhere you go. It's in the intellectual debates in the cafes, the edgy plays in the independent theaters, the rock bands practicing in soundproofed basements. And it's not just the underground. Even in plain sight you see this color. The stunning tile work of the mosques in Isfahan are a kaleidoscope of blue and turquoise. The vibrant patterns of the Persian carpets are world famous. The food is a festival of flavors and colors, rich with saffron, pomegranate, and herbs. This is a culture that has always cherished beauty, poetry, and art. The current regime may try to paint it gray, but the DNA of the nation is bursting with color. So, no, Iran is not gray. It's a Jackson Pollock painting. It's messy, it's chaotic, it's full of contradictions, but it is undeniably alive and full of color. You have the dark, imposing lines of the regime, but splashed all over it are the bright, defiant colors of the people. They are finding joy, falling in love, making art, and living their lives with a passion and a creativity that is breathtaking to witness. To see Iran as a gray, monolithic place is to fall for the propaganda, both from its own government and from those who oppose it. The reality is a place of immense tension, yes, but that tension creates a spark. It creates an energy that makes Iranian society one of the most dynamic and fascinating places on earth. The real story of Iran isn't just about the darkness of repression, it's about the incredible, colorful light that refuses to be extinguished. So, what is Iran? After all this, I think the only honest answer is that it's a country of contradictions. It's ancient and it's modern, it's deeply religious and increasingly secular, it's repressed and it is wildly, defiantly vibrant. It's a place where you can be moved to tears by an act of kindness from a stranger one moment, and then be filled with rage at an act of oppression by the state the next. It's a country that will break your heart and then piece it back together, all in the same day. The Iran we are shown is a caricature, a two-dimensional villain in a global drama. But the real Iran is a human story, filled with nuance, resilience, and complexity. It's a nation of 85 million individual stories, not a single headline. To understand it, we have to be willing to hold two opposing ideas in our heads at the same time, that the government can be a problem, while the people and the culture can be a revelation. It's not about choosing a side, it's about expanding our perspective. Ultimately, a journey into the heart of Persia teaches you that no country is a monolith. It forces you to look beyond the stereotypes and the headlines that are designed to make us afraid of what we don't understand. The real Iran challenges you, it confuses you, it charms you, and it demands that you see it for what it is, not a political talking point, but a deeply human place, as complicated and as beautiful as any other on Earth. The only way to truly see it is to be willing to look closer.